Hey, what's up guys? It's Cher. How you doing? How we feeling? I have had a lot of sugar. It is 7 p.m. So the best thing to do at a time like this is to talk to you guys and do my makeup so I can be doing something and not feel like a sociopath. So today I have brought you here to talk about Crave by Tracy Wolff. The first thing I want to say is, why the hell is everyone saying this is the new Twilight? I mean, I understand because, like, that's how it was promoted. I'm doing my makeup, so I'm priming my face. This is a lot of primer. Oops. It was promoted as the new Twilight. Like, this is the new hot vampire series that you're gonna love and eat the fuck up, right? Which is cool. I mean, get your coin. But this was nothing like Twilight, and I kind of hate that they were promoting it that way, simply because Twilight has such mixed reviews, and I don't really feel like, at least with the book Crave, because I haven't read the second one yet, that this should have mixed reviews like Twilight did. This overall was relatively a great book. Unheard of, unthought of, but it was brilliant. Like, no cap, I thought this was brilliant. So let's get right into it. The story starts with our main character Grace moving to Alaska to live with her uncle and her cousin, right? Because her parents just died tragically in a car crash. So she has to leave her hometown of San Diego, that's where she grew up with her parents, and move to Alaska. She used to spend, I believe, like every summer up in Alaska with her cousin. So, and they used to be like best friends when they were like 6, right? So from there we get introduced to her cousin, and we are also let know that our main character is going to have to adjust really intensely because because she lives in Alaska now from San Diego, and she's gonna have altitude sickness. They're like, well, you know what, we're up really high, you were down really low, so you're gonna feel like shit for a few days, but don't worry, it'll fade, and then we can keep pushing and we can get you enrolled in classes and stuff. Obviously our main character is very upset because, you know, her parents are dead and now she has to move to a new area and she has to adjust her whole life, and she finds that quite difficult. It's not necessarily what she wanted to do, obviously, like, who wants to move because their parents are dead? So she comes into this new school and everybody is treating her a little bit weird, a little funky, but her cousin is very warm and inviting, and she's like, I want us to move in together and be in the same room. I got you all of your favorite color pink stuff, even though she was 6 and hot pink is not really her favorite color anymore. She doesn't tell her that though, because she's being so open and nice and like inviting her into her space. And that's one thing I actually really did like about this book. I loved the weird dynamic between the cousin and the main character. I was like, are we gonna be friends? Frenemies? What's going on? But they end up being really friendly, and I like that. I feel like I have read a lot of books from like the early 2000s. All of my favorite books were written in the early 2000s. So to read this, it was very modern in a way that I didn't know existed in bookdom. Because all of my favorite books and all of my favorite book series started in the early 2000s. So, you know, it'd be like that sometimes. So as our main character is getting slightly adjusted, she runs into a boy named Flint, who is really nice and cool, and she's kind of vibing with him. And he's super nice, and he like carries her up a flight of stairs, and he picks her up like it's nothing, and he's also holding her bags, taking them to her room, and she's kind of like, wow, you're so strong, like, what's up with that? And not saying that men can't be strong, but it was obvious that that was like a lot, and she's like, a little crazy, a little funky. And it's so funny too, because like this main character really peeped shit early and was like, that's weird, I'm gonna ignore it, I'm gonna ignore it, whatever. Ma'am. Like, she gets so many bad feelings throughout this book, and she's like, that's weird, that's a little funky, let me obviously ignore it and wait for something bad to happen. Whatever, we're not gonna talk about it. But Flint carries her up the stairs, and she's like, wow, he's like super duper strong. Like, that's kind of crazy. And then she also talks to Macy, her cousin, and she's trying to see if she likes him. And Tracy says something along the lines of, the groups here don't mess with other groups. So like the jocks stick with the jocks, the emo boys stick with the emo boys, so on and so forth type of thing. And Grace, our main character, is like, well, that's weird. That's funky. And this is all happening relatively quickly. But it was so odd too, because this book felt so slow, because the main character did not want to just admit that things were weird. The main character would be like, that's weird, I'm gonna move on. And I'm gonna try to be normal and feel bad about myself. So as all of this is going on, she runs into Jackson, our love interest. And they have a very weird interaction, because he's mean and broody, and that's what all of the mean, broody boys do. They have very weird reactions to the main character, and then the main character is kind of into it. She's like, kind of sexy, kind of fun, kind of fresh. So she is downstairs in the like lobby, and she runs into Jackson, and she sees him, and he's beautiful, and she's like instantly infatuated with him, because same. And he's like being really mean and broody, and he's like, you need to stay away from me, and you need to get out of my school. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but basically he's just like, hey, you know, this might not be the place for you. You should probably not be here. And she's like, what? Like, I'm kind of just vibing, man. Like, I just got here. Why are you being a weirdo? And then they like separate from each other, but she's obviously very into the fact that he is not into her. She's like, wow, that was such a weird interaction. Wonder what that's all about. It's that main character syndrome, I swear to God. Because, and the thing is, I'm a lesbian, so I don't necessarily feel what she feels when they're describing Jackson. But I also think if a very pretty lady kind of looked at me and was like, you need to get out of my school, I'd be like, so you want to get married? We can get married. That's just what I would do. So as the story progresses, things just continuously get weirder. They have a party, kind of in Grace's honor, to get her kind of acquainted to all of the kids in the school. And she notices that these groups really do not interact with one another. She's like, wow, they are not playing about cliques, do not mess with other cliques. But, you know, she's a new student, she doesn't have a clique yet. So, she's trying to like interact with everybody. Jackson's there, of course. He eats a strawberry very seductively. She's just into it. She meets all of Macy's friends, Macy's boyfriend, and she's like, okay, you know, maybe this won't be such a bad thing, me being here. But then things get a little weird at the party, and she takes off and she goes to the library. And she's like, wow, this library is really cool. It's really updated, and it's got like a whole bunch of stuff in it. And then she hears someone chanting. Now, they're in Alaska, and they let us know that they're in Alaska a lot in this book. They're like, hey, we're in Alaska. You know, altitude sickness. They let us know a few times. And she hears this girl chanting. And she's like, let me check out the chanting. And then she asks the girl, like, hey, like, is that one of the original native languages to Alaska? And the girl's like, oh, yeah, I think so. Like, I don't really know what I'm saying. Just trying it for fun. You know, just doing it for funsies. And that's just enough for her. Like, she doesn't question it. She's just like, oh, cool. Wow, these are not the same shape. And that's just enough for her. And it was so weird, too, because, like, this main character really does peep shit. She says that the girl, her name ends up being Leah. She says Leah looks at her like she is super pissed. Like, she is pissed off that this girl has appeared, right? And then it goes away super fast. So she's like, maybe I didn't actually see that. No, baby, you saw that. and you should be afraid. And she just chooses to not be afraid. Like, that's the thing I didn't get about this character. Things happen, and she's like, wow, maybe I should be afraid. And then she just chooses not to be. She doesn't listen to that voice that we all have that's like, danger, danger, danger. She just acts like she doesn't have one, which really scares me because, like, baby, you are in a new environment. If your chest is telling you this girl is terrifying, I think you should be a little terrified. So she goes to this girl's room. They drink tea. And then she has a stomach ache, even though the altitude sickness should be gone by now. And she doesn't think that's suspicious. She just is like, tummy hurts, whatever, I'm gonna go lay down. You just drank some funky natural tea from a bitch you just met, who gave you a very scary look when you talked to her for the first time, might I add. I think you should be afraid, sis. But she's not afraid. And she's already had a weird instance where boys who go to the school tried to throw her outside. They tried to throw her outside and just leave her out there in the snow. Because why not traumatize the new girl? And the thing is, they're in Alaska, which they told us multiple times. Being outside with no coat on could kill her. But these boys are just outside with no coats on. And she is fully aware that that's weird and just lets them do that. Like, she is fully aware that it's weird that they're outside with no coats on, and she doesn't really question it. Like, she questions it a little bit and then just moves on. And then when this random girl is obviously angry at her for, like, just simply asking her a question like, hey, is that the Icelandic language? Oh my god, hi, I want to make friends. You're just gonna ignore that? Sweetie. Sweetie! Be careful! Like, and she just ignores everything. Now, when she had that thing happen with the boys who tried to put her outside, she runs in to Jackson. And Jackson stops them from putting her outside. But then at the same time, he's like, you should not be at this school. We are not going to be friends. You know what? Someone might be trying to kill you. And she's like, no. Who would try to kill me? Little old me. But at the same time, while all of this is happening, she also becomes friends with a boy named Flint, the one that was carrying her to her dorm room. And she goes to a snowball fight with Flint and her cousin, and the tree branch that she's on snaps. And she falls out of the tree at a point where it could have killed her. She could have died falling out of that tree, but she thinks no one is trying to kill her. Of course not. Why would anyone try to kill me? I'm harmless. I'm human, and, you know, I'm normal. So as all of this is continuing, she does really notice that shit is weird at this fucking school. She's like, this is odd. I should be concerned. But she's not concerned enough. Like, and this is the thing that really got me. I was like, this has more Vampire Academy vibes than Twilight vibes. Because this main character is, one, nothing like Bella. Jackson, he is an Edward. No cap, he is an Edward. But, like, he's not Edward enough. Like, he doesn't get on my nerves like Edward does. Because Edward was like, I like Bella because she's not like other girls. This guy's like, you're pretty. And I gotta stay away from you. Gotta stay away from you. You're pretty. Like, it's a very different vibe. So the fact that people were like, this is the next Twilight. Like, why? Why? It's not. It's the next Crave. You know? It doesn't have vibes. Like, if we're gonna compare it to anything, Vampire Academy, for sure. But anyway. So all of this is all happening at the same time. And then, so somehow Grace convinces Jackson to really start hanging out with her. So he's sitting with her, she's becoming friends with his friends, and she's noticing that everybody treats him a little funky. Like, when he walks through the hallway, no one stands anywhere near him. Like, they're afraid of him. And he doesn't smile, he's brooding. You know, he's the main character, he's brooding. That's so funny. so she's like, you know, people wouldn't be that scared of you if you smiled. And like, they start telling each other bad jokes. They're texting while she's sick and can't go to school because she sprained her ankle when she fell out of the tree. And Flint saved her. Like, he got down and saved her. But you know what, we'll talk about it later. So all of this is all happening relatively at the same time. And only days have passed. Like, she's been at this damn school for like a week. And someone has tried to kill her twice. And she's like, nope. You know what? Coinky dink. So she's continuing to get to know all of these people. And relatively have a decent time. She finally gets to go to class. And Jackson is like walking her to class. And they're flirting. And he gives her Twilight. Like, and this is the thing that was really weird about this book series. It was very aware of what it was. It's like, we're a school with monsters. So let's have the main character's favorite TV show be Legacies, and then let's have her love interest give her Twilight to read. And that just freaked me out. I was like, this book is a little too self-aware of like what it is and what it's doing, to the point where it made me uncomfortable. But again, all of my favorite books were written in the early 2000s, which means most of the time they have references to TV shows, books, and movies that I just never read, you know? I don't know them. Now this is where it gets really good. So as she is connecting to Jackson and they're spending more time together, things start getting more and more funky. Jackson and Flint don't like each other. And Jackson tells the main character, Grace, you gotta stay away from him. I don't like him. He's not your friend. I don't trust him. Y'all should not be friends. And then instead of her being like, this is so mean and cruel, she's like, you can't tell me who to talk to. Do it again and I will never speak to you again. And Jackson's like, okay, I won't do that again. And that's just it. Unheard of. And that's why you can't call this Twilight, because Edward wouldn't have had that. Edward would have beat her up. And now this is where things get really crazy. So as Grace's relationship with our main character Jackson progresses, things just get a little bit weirder. And somebody tries to kill her again. I think she's sitting on Jackson's lap or something of that sort. And the chandelier above them just breaks and almost kills her again. And also the other people who were sitting under the said chandelier. And at this point, Grace is starting to figure out, this shit is weird. This is unheard of. And so she talks to her uncle and her cousin, and it finally comes out, like, there are witches at this school, there are shapeshifters at this school, there are vampires at the school, everybody's a little bit spooky. And you're the only one who isn't spooky, even though your dad was a witch. But your dad lost his powers because he fell in love with a human, and he chose to be with the human over that, like, witchdom life, right? She's like, wow, that's crazy. Crazy. So she's in Jackson's room. And actually, I think being in Jackson's room came first. So she ends up in Jackson's room. And she ends up in Jackson's room. And they're kissing. And it's their first kiss, and their first kiss leads to their second kiss, and their second kiss leads to the third kiss, blah, 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 blah. And somehow a window breaks, cuts her neck, and she almost dies again. Again. And then when she's, like, kind of healing, she looks and sees there are bite marks on her neck, and she's like, what the fuck? Who the fuck bit me? Somebody fucking bit me. This is crazy. So then she finally, like, has a breakdown, and everyone finally starts explaining to her, like, hey, you know, this is a weird school. You know, there are witches, warlocks, vampires, and I keep wanting to say ghouls, but dragons at this school. And you're the only human here. And you're only here, you know, because your parents died. You wouldn't be here if you weren't special. Her dad, not her dad, her uncle tries to send her back And she has like this weird breakdown in the office, and she's like, I can't go back, you know, I feel at home here, I'm with family, and I haven't had family since my parents died, and I'd really like to stay. But the only reason she really wants to stay is because she wants to be with Jackson and their funny jokes. Like, they tell each other jokes, and they kissed like one night. So now she has to stay at the school. At the same time all of this is happening, earthquakes have been going around in Alaska. Now, they live in Alaska, so they have earthquakes, but turns out they're not actually earthquakes at all. It is just Jackson not being able to control his emotions about Grace, because Grace takes him so out of his natural square that he has earthquakes, you know, thinking about her and feeling emotions, you know, about this woman that he is, young girl that he's very into. I know, crazy. So as the story goes on, he begins to explain everything to her, like, hey, this is what it is. We shouldn't be together because I am a vampire prince who was born a vampire, and because you're close to me, that'll make you a target to my enemies, other people's enemies. Either way, you're gonna be a target, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you, so we should break up. And she's like, no, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing because we like each other. No one is trying to kill me, and I've already been exposed as like someone who means something to you, which means if someone was gonna come after me, they're not gonna stop just because we stopped talking. I'm still gonna be someone to you in their eyes. And he kind of gets that, and he's like, okay, let's keep going. So even though Grace doesn't really believe someone's trying to kill her, she does start to kind of give Jackson more leeway. She's like, yeah, your friends can walk me to class and I will, you know, walk with them. I can, you know, handle you checking on me throughout the day. I'm not going to stop you from doing those things because it'll make you feel better and I want to be with you. So I'll handle those few things. So she's walking to class with like his friends, and she's like really getting integrated in the school, and she's starting to feel comfortable. As soon as she starts to feel comfortable, she gets killed, or someone tries to kill her again. And it turns out that person that she had a bad feeling about in the beginning, yeah, remember Leah, is trying to kill her and sacrifice her to bring back her dead boyfriend, who happens to be Jackson's brother, and the reason Jackson is so broody. Jackson is broody because his brother was crazy and wanted to enslave the entire world because he was a prince. So he wanted to enslave the entire world, and he wanted to control the world by killing everyone except pure-blood vampires, which are the vampires that were born. So eventually he was just gonna like kill everybody. And his brother said, hell no, don't do that, and decided to kill him. And he did, and he wasn't supposed to because he was like the second born, and even though he was like really strong and stuff, you know, that was frowned upon. But he felt like his brother was like evil and shouldn't exist anymore, so he killed him. And that's why he's so broody. Now that's important. So Leah was his mate, and now Leah misses her boyfriend and wants to bring him back to life. And she's a witch slash vampire, like she does spells and stuff. So she learned a spell to bring him back from the dead, and she needed to use Grace as a sacrifice, because Grace is special in some way. It's not really explained why she's special because she thinks she's human, but her parents were powerful witches, and then Leah says that it took so much time and energy to find her, and she doesn't really get why. Because we never understand why. We're the main character. We're not supposed to be special. We're normal girls. Leah has been trying to kill her this whole time. But it turns out she's actually not the person who's been trying to kill her the whole time. The shapeshifters have also been trying to kill her because they knew about Leah's plans to let Hudson back into the world by sacrificing Grace. And they feel like that's too big of a risk. So the shifters have been trying to kill her this entire time, not actually just Leah. So the shifters have been trying to kill her as well as Leah. But Leah is the one succeeding. But Leah needed her alive this whole time so that she could sacrifice her on like an aisle. Either way, homegirl getting killed. So then it becomes this big fight of, I need to stay alive, I need to do this, and then there was a rumor that Jackson was a part of the evil plot, and then she's like, I can't trust Jackson, while he's literally fighting one of the shifters that was also trying to kill me. Very dramatic stuff, you know, the usual, just a normal romantic relationship. This is going down. Grace is in the fight of her life. She's fighting Leah. She's fighting Flint, who tries to strangle her to death. Because they're like, you know what? If killing you means Hudson doesn't get back into the world, you gotta die. And I support that. And that's the thing. It's so funny too, because I think she was actually kind of more accepting of that fate, of Flint being the one to kill her, than Leah, which honestly, me too. Because I liked Flint, and I liked what he brought to the table, even though, like, he was really only trying to befriend her to gain her trust. But, like, hey, you know, he's just trying to protect his people, because he's a dragon, and he was gonna kill the dragons and stuff. Jackson is fighting his way back to Grace. Grace is fighting for her life against Leah. And basically, all the shit is hitting the fan at once, and she's just trying to survive. Then she's like, I can't believe I ever doubted Jackson. There's no way he could be a part of this plot. And everything just continues on, and then eventually Leah gets killed. Grace barely makes it, and then Jackson dies, and then she gives him her blood, and then she almost dies from blood loss, and everything works out. Everything ends up fine. But it was so interesting too. Like, it was such a wild ride start to finish. Like, there was so much happening for no goddamn reason. Like, there was literally nothing going on in the first half of this book, and then as soon as she finds out that, like, the guy she likes is a vampire, everything just speeds up. Like, this book was slow. It took me, I think, 3 days to get through the first 10 chapters. It took a while, but once it picked up, it really did pick up, and it didn't slow down. So overall, that is the main plot of the story. And then at the very end of this book, Jackson and Grace are walking to class, and Hudson appears with a sword, ready to behead the love of her life. So you know what Grace does? She turns Jackson around, so she is the one that gets beheaded instead, because she believes now she was meant to be the hero of Jackson's story and not Jackson be her hero. Like, she's meant to save him. But as soon as the sword touches her, she turns to stone. Ah! Turns out she's not human. She is not a human. She's indeed a magical creature. But it's odd because she's a gargoyle. Like, she turns to stone instead of, you know, being a witch. And then Jackson is talking to, like, her uncle, and they're trying to figure out why she won't change back. And they're saying that she should be able to change back on her own. But the thing is, Hudson has also disappeared. So they think that she is holding she's holding Hudson in her stone world. And she's not coming back until she finds a way to kill Hudson. And that, my friends, is how the story ends. And this entire book, reading this entire book was worth it simply for that ending. Because I actually really liked the ending. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was very fun. And I was like, whoa, there's a lot happening here. But oh my god, the first half of this book was so slow for no reason. I was like, can we pick up the pace? I was bored. I was so bored. I was incredibly bored reading the first half of this. But it really, once it picked up, it picked all the way up. And I really enjoyed it. My overall thoughts on this book is that it's actually very good. I think it's definitely worth reading. The only thing that really threw me off is that the characters will swear sometimes, but then in Grace's head she uses FML, LOL, AF. But then, like, 3 pages later she'll be like, that's bullshit. And I just felt like that was, for me, a little off-putting. But I think that's simply because most of the books that I read are from the early 2000s, and they're not that modern. I don't know, it threw me off. I didn't like it. I liked everything else about this book. The characters felt very relatable. I feel like Grace handled everything really well. I think she was a little dumb in the beginning because like she would notice that things were weird and then actively ignore that weird feeling that she got. She's like, something about this doesn't feel right. Let me ignore that feeling. Like, that was very much Grace in this book. But she gets the hang of it eventually. She figures it out. I think Jackson was actually a really good love interest. I don't necessarily understand why they're so connected to each other, but like, I never understood the appeal of Edward Cullen. You know, Jacob Black, I understood. Flint, I understood. The main character, not so much. I think this book is definitely worth reading. I would not call it a Twilight per se. I hate that it was marketed that way. It's more of a like a Vampire Academy Legacies type of vibe, and it's funny because she does mention Legacies in this story. I give it about a 7 out of 10. I've read better vampire stories. I've read better monster stories, but this one kept me intrigued, and now I'm actually very excited to read the next book. And I didn't think I would read the next book in the beginning because the beginning was just so slow. But overall, I think it was great. So I'm going to show you guys the completed look in a little bit, and then I will be out of your hair. Hi. So overall, I really did like this book. I did. And I'm very excited to read the next one. I probably will make another video on the next one as well, just because like it was interesting enough to keep me interested. Maybe you guys are interested too. Maybe you guys like this type of video. Maybe you hate it. But either way, I had a good time. So I hope you enjoyed this video. You can like, comment, subscribe if you want to. What were your thoughts on the book? What was your favorite part? What was your least favorite part? Did you like Leah being the villain? Because in a way, I saw it coming and I didn't see it coming at the same time. I thought it was going to be Flint, and I was kind of right. And then I also thought it would be Leah, and I was right. So, I don't know. Give me your thoughts, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.